The dark truth about Hollywood is rarely found under the glare of the spotlight, but often in the deep, freezing shadows of its most beautiful secrets. The November night of 1981, when actress Natalie would drown off the coast of Catalina Island, was not merely a tragedy. It was the birth of an enduring, chilling mystery that would haunt the American psyche for decades. Natalie, the luminous golden girl, was aboard her yacht, the Splendor, accompanied by her legendary husband, Robert Wagner, her handsome co-star Christopher Walken, and Captain Dennis Davon. The atmosphere was deceptively festive, filled with champagne and conversation at a local restaurant, but beneath the surface, a toxic mix of jealousy and alcohol was brewing. As the group returned to the small boat, the pleasant evening soured, fueled by a dangerous argument ignited by Robert Wagner's possessive insecurities over Natalie's career ambitions and her relationship with Walken. Wagner would later admit to a volatile temperament in his memoir, acknowledging a jealousy that was both the best and worst part of his personality. The tension climaxed in a terrifying, explosive fight where Wagner reportedly smashed a wine bottle, the sound shattering the quiet of the harbour. Walken, seeking refuge from the eruption, wisely retreated, leaving the iconic couple alone in a silence that was far more dangerous than the storm that had just passed. Hours later, in the dead of the night, a chilling discovery was made. Natalie Wood was gone, vanished from the yacht, and the small rubber dinghy, the Valiant, was missing. Wagner's reaction was slow and strangely muted. He waited until 3:30 a.m. to finally place a call to the Coast Guard, a delay that remains one of the most damning pieces of circumstantial evidence against him, Tim. This reluctance to act, coupled with Natalie's notorious, lifelong fear of dark water, a phobia that made the idea of her voluntarily entering the ocean unthinkable, immediately transformed the incident from a simple accident into a case dripping with profound suspicion. When Natalie Wood's body was recovered, the official ruling was deemed accidental drowning, but the physical evidence on her person offered a far darker counter, narrative that refused to be silenced. Found wearing only a thin nightgown, socks, and a red parka, her appearance strongly suggested a sudden, panicked entry into the water, inconsistent with a calm attempt to secure a boat. Crucially, the autopsy revealed fresh, unexplained bruises on her arms, neck, and legs, injuries that pointed convincingly toward a physical struggle that took place before she ever hit the frigid water. The bruises, combined with a staggering blood alcohol content of 0.4%, compounded by prescription medication, painted a portrait of extreme vulnerability and impairment, but not necessarily a simple fall. Furthermore, the supposed instrument of the accident, the Valiant dinghy, was later found drifting nearby with its engine completely off, the key in the ignition, and the oars neatly tied down. These details defied logic. Why would a person, panicked or intoxicated, attempting to flee or secure a dinghy, take the time to secure the oars and leave the engine untouched? Every physical fact seemed to mock Wagner's account that she had slipped while tying up the boat. Adding to the mounting inconsistencies were the accounts of witnesses. A couple anchored on another boat nearby reported hearing a woman's desperate, prolonged cries for help echoing across the water for nearly 15 minutes, followed by a man's slurred but distinct voice responding, "Okay, honey, Annie, we're coming to get you." Yet no assistance was ever rendered, and the dark water swallowed the secret whole. The enduring inconsistencies ensured that the case of Natalie Wood was never truly closed, but merely suspended in a state of unresolved trauma. Decades later, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office was forced to re-examine the case, leading to a pivotal change in the death certificate. The cause was officially changed from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. A stark acknowledgement that the initial conclusion was fundamentally flawed. This reclassification led to the LAPD's official reopening of the investigation, a move heavily fueled by the persistence of Natalie's sister, Lana Wood, and the shifting testimony of Captain Dennis Davon. Lana would spent years fiercely campaigning against the official narrative, convinced that her sister had been a victim, not an accident. Her belief was solidified by Daven's confession, according to Lana, that he had lied during the initial inquiry to protect Robert Wagner, recalling an explosive argument followed by a chilling order from Wagner not to call the Polars or turn on the lights. In 2018, the skepticism surrounding Wagner reached its peak when detectives publicly named him a person of interest, citing that his repeated changes in his story just don't add up. Though prosecutors ultimately cleared Wagner of direct criminal charges in 2022, asserting they had exhausted all viable leads, the move failed to quell the relentless public and familial suspicion. The lack of definitive proof merely trapped the case in an agonizing limbo, leaving the fundamental question unanswered and forcing Robert Wagner to live out his remaining years under the cold, unyielding weight of doubt. For Robert Wagner, the decades following Natalie's death were defined not by his career success, but by the devastating gap she left behind. He became, by his own admission, a ghost of his former, polished self, haunted by the whispers that followed him everywhere. Why? The simple question, did you kill your wife, became an unbearable cross to bear. In his 2008 memoir, Pieces of My Heart, he finally broke his prolonged silence, not with a defiant defense, but with a profound and heartbreaking articulation of grief, stating he loved her, and that losing her was the darkest moment of his entire life. While his daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, publicly defended her father's innocence in her own documentary, attempting to reclaim the narrative as a story of love and loss. The relentless investigation and the public designation as a person of interest ensured that true peace would remain unattainable. Now, a fragile nonagenarian at 95, Wagner's life is permanently etched by the tragedy. The tragedy. In a rare and poignant interview, he finally gave voice to the full extent of his regret, not confessing to a crime, but to a moral failure. I should have gone after her immediately. Maybe, if I had, she'd still be here. His eyes, filled with the pain of 4 decades of isolation, offered a final crushing statement that summarized his entire fraught existence. I was the last man with her. I can't deny that. He lives out his life avoiding the ocean, the sound of the waves, a painful, constant echo of the night he lost everything. His silence, though physically broken, continues to serve as the loudest, most damning indictments in the 4-decade-old Hollywood mystery that simply refuses to rest.